What's up, everybody? Nick Powills, publisher of 1851franchise.com. If you like our videos, please click subscribe below or wherever that magic button appears. Today, we are talking Creative Colors International, coming up next on Meet the Zor. Everybody laughs at my first question, and it's only a scripted question I have, which I'm sure you're going to laugh too, but Mark, how did you accidentally fall into franchising? What is your franchise story?
Oh, wow. Good question. I have to tie that back to my current wife, right? We were dating in high school, and her parents, my in-laws, were running an operation in Chicago at the time for repairing vinyl and leather. And that was kind of my first interest into the business. And we dated through high school and college. And while I was in college, they decided to start franchising. And my degree was going to be in marketing and management. And I worked with them a little bit over the summers. So it kind of like it was a natural fit. So I guess I have that to thank for my wife.
All right. I mean, crazy beginnings. So go back to you're in college. They decide they have their business. They decide they're going to franchise this thing. What was your perception of franchising at that point in your life and in your career?
At that point, I was very much a newbie, right? So really had no experience with franchising whatsoever. The only experience I had was I knew their business model. I knew how to repair vinyl, leather, and fabric because I was a technician over the summers. So I knew the product. I knew it was a need-based service and very much niche oriented. And it was intriguing to me. And I said, you know what, I can probably help assist with training and being a field rep and technical rep. And, you know, from there we can kind of learn from each other and see how we kind of expand. But prior to that, I had zero experience in franchising.
What year did they officially franchise?
1991 is when they finally sold their first one. They
Okay.
started the process in a year earlier to get their business franchisable. You know, they had to write an operations manual, an FDD, get state registrations. So that took, it was at least, I think, 12, 13 months.
So going back to franchising in the 90s, obviously a much different time than what you have to battle through today to build awareness. And I would imagine even then the marketing, because you were studying marketing, the marketing of services is yellow pages, classified ads, traditional newspaper, just trying to get lift through those channels. How, when you think about just the pure model of franchising then compared to, say, the early 2000s into the current time, how have you seen just both on the consumer side and the franchise side shift from your viewpoint, being a marketer and then a technician and then a family man as a part of the business?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, it's completely evolved. When I got here, they really had no marketing. They had one brochure that was created for them about the benefits of franchising, and it was go into a business on the go. That was the tagline. Other than that, they had no sales collateral. They had a business card, and then they had a mobile unit van with, custom graphics. That was it. Yellow pages and pretty much all word of mouth, face-to-face, cold calling. That's how the business was developed. And Yellow Pages was popular, but being that our concept is really a B2B, working with car dealers, body shops, rental car companies, it was set more as a vending machine route. So it was relationship selling. And once the account was landed, then there wasn't really a lot of marketing that needed to be done. But that evolved to online advertising, with the age of internet and Google and Bing, to have search engine visibility, to creating, 25 to 40 different custom market trifolds for each industry that we focused on. I mean, it was a complete overhaul from what it was then to where it's today. And then even franchise development, we attended all the franchise trade shows back in the early 90s. Blenheim, MFV, IFA had them, but they weren't as popular. And that's how we sold probably the first 10 or 12 franchises, was attending those local trade shows. We would get in our mobile unit van because that was the business.
Right.
We would drive it to a convention center and we would have it on the floor and we would promote face to face. Those kind of went away in the 2000s and now they're starting to come back again. But yeah, it's definitely shifted quite a bit.
The term "the good old days" might be too extreme, but if you think back to all the things you were just talking about, I mean, what I hear is the magic of sales is still this, and you know, franchisees to some degree in today's world probably feel like you can flip on the lights and make money a little bit more today because of the power of all of the avenues that you can buy advertising on. Is there something, as you think back or reflect back on the last 30 years, that you're like, that was the best form of marketing or relationship building or sales, whether it's on the Z side or it's on the consumer side? Is there something that sticks out that you're like, that was the good old days?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the big turning point for us was probably the age of internet. And we did have a website to start out, Creative Colors INTL .com was our main site. Then we rebranded to our tagline of wecanfixthat.com. Once we did that and we got on the internet and we started promoting our services for real, I call it keywords and what average people search for, that helped fill the pipeline of franchisees buying a franchise and flipping a light switch and having instant customers. It can also be a detriment sometimes for a new franchise starting out because we have national and regional accounts set up. And once a franchise opens up in a new area, we plug in the zip codes and say, we're here to service your customers and warranty claims. But then also we get the instant influx of B2C traffic and people just would search. So for us, that was a huge game changer. We're still heavy in the B2B space today. But today now we have restaurant managers, medical facility, hotels, hospitals doing search for our types of services, which 30 years ago, we did not have.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably cool to look at the evolution of just how customer acquisition has gone. For you and your story, because I'm curious. I mean, life put you into this role. I mean, you were going to college for something. I mean, it's still combined. It still fits into your approach on a daily basis. But have you, throughout your life in being in a family business, did you ever have an itch to do something else, or how do you find the motivation to keep putting the energy back into something that you've been doing for such a long time?
Yeah, no, again, good question. I did have at that time, even during college, my father had owned a Budweiser distributorship in the greater Chicagoland territory. So in my latter years of high school and then in through college and summers, I was a helper on the beer truck. He was grooming me to maybe get into the beer business and eventually take it over as second generation ownership. Meanwhile, I was also working Creative Colors during college careers and saw the difference in what I was actually able to earn being a helper on a truck versus what I was able to generate as a technician. I was working half the amount of hours and made 2 to 3 times the weekly pay. And I quickly saw, while the beer business could be exciting and somebody in their 20s, I'm like, I didn't see myself later in life when I had a family, being in my 40s and 50s, going out to bars, promoting new beers, going to events, in doing that throughout, the rest of my career. And when the franchising model came up into play, in seeing what they had developed and built in the Chicagoland territory and with them adding technicians, I saw the value in what they were offering to the techs, that they were building a career out of it. It just wasn't a job. And I'm like, if we can do this and we can help franchisees build the same thing that they built for their family that I was a part of, I seen it. That was the attraction for me. And that's sort of what led me into franchising. I'm like, because I had two paths I could have gone down. And I chose the creative colors because I thought it had much more merit in the long run. And being able to, I guess you would say, maybe build a legacy type business. Not that that maybe couldn't have been done in the beer business, but I didn't have the passion or the desire to focus on that. And that to me today, I'm still equally as excited about the business, 32 years later for me, um, because we still have so much opportunity and real estate to develop our brand, not only here in the US, but international expansion down the road, which can be third generation, maybe fourth generation. But lots of opportunity still.
What's interesting about that story, and I'm curious. My question, I'm going to tell you what my question is, but I want to put some commentary above it. My question is going to be how did your dad take the shift? But it's interesting because if you think about why franchisees and even your own pathway, it tends to connect back to family. What I heard out of your answer, which I think is deeply important and probably the same message that hits a franchisee, is you said, as a technician, I could work half of the time and make double the money. And ultimately, I think there's a moment for a franchisee that they're going to think about, how can I do the same thing for not working for someone else, but working for myself? So they go through that same journey, and then they tag on, in my 40s, in my 50s, in my 60s, I want to have the time to give back to my family. And you were looking at your dad's business and saying, it just doesn't align with what my needs are. So my original question is, how did your dad take that, even though like what you were doing was building up legacy and family and happiness for yourself?
Yeah, I think at first he was maybe a little disappointed, in the fact that I kind of chose a different career. But he understood it. He wanted me to build my own vision and my own career path. And then ultimately, a couple of years after I made the transition, him and his partner wound up basically selling out his half of the shares to him. They had some conflicts, with it, but I think he saw too that there was nobody else that would be interested in the family to maybe take it over, which made it easier for him to have an exit strategy. Come years later, my father rejoined working for us at Creative Colors at the home office, as a technician when he first started out, when he relocated up to Wisconsin and ran a route for 5-6 years. Then he wanted to kind of retire and step back out of a truck. So we hired him as our field operations manager. So he's been with us at our home office, for the past 6 or 7 years. So it kind of funny how it came full circle. Now he's mostly retired. He works from home. He maybe works 20 hours a week, but he still has his hands involved, answering technical questions, dispatching national accounts. Everything's all remote support. So he saw the opportunity and he was glad that he was able to come on board. And as he had said, he goes, it would have been a nice opportunity if I joined the company sooner. Right. So I don't know if that had to play on him, father and son working together per se, or he just saw the opportunity of what we've been building and knows the value of the business.
That's really cool. I mean, that's a cool ending to the story. I mean, like, look, I think in whether it's your segment or other segments that are super fragmented, like I think about like pool service businesses, and given franchising is connecting the dots there. But you have these legacy businesses where mom and dad have blood, sweat, and tears into this thing, and obviously the benefits of working for yourself. And then they go, hey, Junior, do you want this? And they're like, I don't want this. And then they just close shop. Like the beauty of obviously being connected to Budweiser, the value of the distributor, or a franchisee, the value of the brand, if you hit that obstacle at the end, there's an asset to sell, which is a nice benefit to have on licensee or franchising. And that's then obviously your story's connected too. As you were saying that, I think there's a area of opportunity, whether it happens in your brand or just happens holistically in franchising. I've never heard of a franchisor saying, like, at the annual conference, we're going to do a session for the children of franchisees just to educate them on what franchising is, because oftentimes the kids of entrepreneurs don't want to follow in that same pathway. But if they understood what the opportunities were, maybe that would change. Maybe that helps build legacy. Because I think every human being wants to have something special that their children, if you've chosen to have children, something special that your children are proud of, that, all that hard work went into,
Right. I mean, they have to share that same passion and desire too, so that's sort of the key now. Even with ours, we have a couple third generation starting to enter in the home office. My sister-in-law has both of her daughters in the business, starting, in the last year and a half. My kids, it remains to be seen if it's going to go down that line. My son, possibly, since he's going for business marketing and finance. My daughter, she's going in the line of the pharmaceutical industry, and she's getting her doctorate. So I can't see her wanting to come in and jump into the business today, because she has a different desire and passion.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little disconnected, but ultimately,
Yes.
if you're contributing to the cost of education, you're still investing in it. Maybe someday.
Right. You never know. Could change.
So one thing that I love about the business category that you're in, and if I could watch the movie of how the business is marketed over time, it'd be very fascinating just to see the progression of advertising. I mean, when I think back to me selling ads for my college newspaper, there was a bagel shop where I sold them an ad that said free bagel if you bring this in, and they would compensate us based on the number of coupons that came in from the newspaper, things that are long gone. And
That's old school.
Yeah, right. But from a business standpoint, you don't have a ton of competition. And you and I have talked a little bit about this. If I search for carpet cleaning, I can find 7,000 different options. Therefore, we're playing in a pricing game always. And so a franchisee can get their butt kicked all the time. You're in a business that not a lot of people, including yourself, grew up and said as a little kid, I want to do that. Like if you lined your business to your dad's business and which one sounds more exciting, you'd be like, of course, my dad's business. But then you start looking at the construct of what you said, make more, work less, have a point of differentiation in the marketplace. As you started getting involved in the franchise side and franchise growth, franchisees come to the table. I would imagine very few have a relationship with the brand. They're coming in and saying, wow, this is how much I have to afford into franchising. This would exist in a category. And then they land on yours and they're like, that's actually a pretty good business. As part of the reason it's a good business is because you don't have a ton of competition. It's easy to find you. The adaption of your website on finding you, like, did all those things end up playing into part of the magic on why apples to apples, it's a better business than majority of franchises that exist?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's an education for sure for us, because nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to own a leather repair franchise, right? So we need to educate them on all of the pluses that go along in the business opportunity of being home-based, being mobile, low point of entry to get in with high return gains over a shorter period of time. You're not having to wait 7 to 10 years to get your recoup on your investment. The ability to scale and to grow and put on mobile units, and to go back to reference the E-Myth book of, you can start working in the business and being a technician if you like to understand it, and then work to step out of the business and hire your employees and manage them and build a team. That's sort of what our culture has changed, over the years, but a lot of it's all education. People don't know who we are, what we do. We're not the Jimmy John's, we're not the Menchie's frozen yogurt, we're not the latest fad franchise out there. It's a service need-based business, one that runs behind the scenes. So that's the struggle for us in FranDev, is keeping that message and trying to get the message out and shouting it from the rooftops
Mm.
to potential franchisees and prospects. So everybody that's really come to us, with the exception of a couple people that have maybe worked as a tech that bought as a franchise, they grew to develop their own book of business. Everybody has all come from different walks of life, from engineers to used car managers at a dealership. They saw the opportunity and growth, to school teachers, to mechanics, stay-at-home moms, you name it. We have the ability to train them, to get them to follow the model, to make them successful. They just need to see the vision of the capabilities of what's out there for them if they stay on course, to develop a successful, book of business. But it's definitely it's a challenge, and it's ongoing. Of always, it's education. It's education. And even today, customers even say, I didn't even know vinyl repair existed, or my leather furniture at my house could get repaired. So even with our tagline of we can fix that.com, it's pretty poignant. We still need to do a lot more in terms of education to get the brand messaging out, right? We're not a household name like, again, a Jimmy John's or a McDonald's. Eventually the goal is to get there, but it's just going to take a little time to get more units and more manpower and more marketing dollars and leverage to promote the brand the right way.
Well, and ultimately, I mean, the buyer journey, it's like, would I preemptively want to know that your service exists? No, it's really a need based. I have a tear or a repair that's been pending, and I start looking for what is the solve here. I've done searches on leather repair as just a topic, and you get obviously all the shoe companies that appear, but then there's very few people or companies that can come out there and fix a tear in upholstery, leather, vinyl, whatever. And so it's not hard to find you when that happens, but to know that there's a solve versus taking whatever has a tear in it and throwing it in the garbage, put it in the alley, knowing that this exists is probably part of the education side. But you've been doing it for 30 years. And, again, like I think the magic, you went through this moment when you're evaluating dad's business or my in-laws business. Franchisees go through it when they're saying, okay, here's the amount of money that I have to spend. Where do I have the best shot? And if they see that vision, same thing you saw, of make more money, work less time, be able to scale and spend time with the family, then it seems like a short list brand. Then comes obviously the awareness issue of just getting this in front of people when they're making that decision. But I love the story. I think it's a really cool story that aligns nicely with what franchising is meant to be, which is family and legacy and opportunity and scale. And that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, and that's, our goal of what we've been trying to do with building it. We've never been the franchisor that says we want to sell 70 or 80 units a year. It's a different approach than many franchisors have. We want to scale within the growth level that we can support to make successful franchisees. And I know that's not the norm in franchising. And over the years, I've talked to other franchisors and they told me we're nuts the way we're doing our model. And I'm like, at the end of the day, we're still here. We're still standing. We've survived 3, 4, 5 recessions. We survived COVID. We're controlling the messaging and I guess you would say our scalability, in doing it the way we want to do it, not the way others feel we should be doing it.
Yeah. Well, what's the definition of success? For someone say you're doing it wrong. I mean, if you told me there's a business that you've been in for 30 years, haven't quit, and still are excited to come to work every day, like that sounds like a definition of winning in life.
Right. And it's profitable every year. That to me, it's not like we're showing 70% profit one year and the next year you're losing 50%. And, unlike our government that's losing millions of dollars and we keep going in debt, if we as a company had to keep borrow, we're going to go out of business. You can't do it that way. You have to be financially and fiscally responsible to charter your own course. And, that's sort of what we've done. And it's worked well. I always say it's like the tortoise and the hare. right? We're getting there. It's just taking us a little longer to get there, but that's fine. We're happy with the results. We're still making forward progress. Albeit it might not be as somebody that's opening 200 units this year versus us that opens 12. We're fine where we're at.
Well, and I still think there's just from the tremendous value side of your business. If I'm looking, you have the self-serve frozen yogurt brands that pop on the scene, the men's health brands that pop on the scene, the junk trash smashing that pop on the scene. If you go backwards and you say, okay, how long have those business units been able to prove point of differentiation and climb in the marketplace? It's a short lifeline. Yours, we can look back 30 years and see you've been doing this. And that to a buyer should be one of the pro check marks that they have to put on their list.
Yeah, it is for sure.
So, yeah,
I mean, in our item 19, it's 17 pages, right? We disclose every franchise earnings from day one that they started. I mean, again, I know there's not a lot of franchisors that do that. There's some that don't even have an earnings claim, but to be transparent and put that in there, we can show longevity, right? And
that's awesome.
For me as a potential buyer, I want to see that. I want to know what the opportunity is. I want to know where I can be in 5 years or 10 years and have the track record to go back and look at that. I mean, to me, that's overwhelming. And one of the top decision makers is what it should be, besides the fact that they like the industry and they like to get involved in being, quote, a non-sexy business.
Well, what you just said, I think, is another thing. If a candidate has watched this up to this point, a 17-page item 19 that shows what does the earnings look like from start to current. The reality is majority of brands use item 19 as a marketing tool now that shows earnings potential, but that's not year one. That's usually not year two. It might not even be year three. And so then the buyer, if they scrape the money together, if they weren't as financially sound as they should have been going into the business, then their expectations are off from the get-go. And now that's a trust thing. I think a lot about this in the franchise buying process. In every franchise brand, it usually goes, I filled out the website, I had a conversation with them on the phone, and go through this process that I eventually go to discovery day where I meet the human being one time and then invest my life savings into the business. Like, you got to be able to find trust in that process, or else that's crazy. It's insane.
It really is. I mean, it's quite a dating or courting process that goes through, but it's one that first phone call communication that you have with them, it's being transparent and upfront. You gotta show the good, the bad, the ugly, and they're going to find out if it's going to be the right fit for them. And our job as a franchisor is to take them down that path. And we always tell everybody, hey, we realize this might not be the right franchise fit for you, but we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that we give you all the ammunition you need to make a decision if CCI is going to be the right fit, if you feel you want to be in this industry, if you feel you have what it's going to take to grow and scale it following our model. And to me, again, that's another important process. We've turned franchises away that we didn't feel were going to be a good fit. And rightfully so, because they went in to do something else. It wasn't their passion. It wasn't their why. So, and we get that, we're all realist in knowing that the right opportunity has to be for the right person, and they have to be able to see the forest through the trees, so to speak, of what's down the path 10 years from now.
Well, Mark, cool story. 30 plus years doing this, not to add more time onto the wound when you say that, but 30 plus years doing this, doing it the right way, continuing to stick to your core. I love it. Hopefully 30 years from now, both of you and I can go have that Budweiser and talk about success again. So really cool stuff. Thanks for sharing some of your story with us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on today. I'm glad we had the chance to connect.
Yeah, me too. For Mark, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor.